if I'm mispronouncing anything. 6-0, Michi Impossible. Number 6, Hungry Barracuda. Number 8, Sin Sister. Number 8-4, Evie Night Fury. And number 9-3, Catzilla. And then for the Rotterdam Honeys, we have number 014, Exterminate. 1-0, Whippin' Red Siren. 1-1, Iron Mist. 1-1-1, Flies Manelli. F16, Rosa Perigosa. 183, Van Minkelen. Number 2, Hazy Jane. 231, Monster Mary. 32, Loos Licht. 47, Cherry Bomb. 48, Pocket Bomb. Number 5, Bremer. 94, May. 95, Carsanova. And finally, we have P53, Fear Pressure. And we're going into lineup time. Rotterdam wields number 3-2, Looslicht as a jammer, and Zurich has 4-2 as a jammer as well. Four to 0, and that's Scardenay. Looslicht is out of the pack and gets lead. And is running the corner. The jammer for Zurich is still working hard against that strong wall from Rotterdam. You can see a nice bridging action from the blockers here in the middle, making sure that they are maintaining back. And a penalty has been called on skater 1-0 for and another penalty for Rotterdam, a direction on 4-8, unfortunately. And it's good to note that the jammer for Zurich is still on their initial pack, so they're still fighting and still not able to score points. And that was a full 2-minute jam to start off this game. I just realized that there might be people in the crowd who might not know what's going on, so I will give a quick explanation. You can also have a look in the bout book. You can download it via the QR codes that are pasted all over the place. But in short, you have two types of players in Derby. You can see the skaters with the stars on their helmets. Those are called the jammers, and they are the ones who can score points. And they score points by passing the hips of the blockers from the other team. There seems to be some confusion about jammer penalties. Both jammers are in the penalty box, which means that they switch off. Zurich jammer is out now. And the Rotterdam jammer only has to sit for the same amount of time that the Zurich jammer sat. Both jammers are back on track. Zurich jammer making some nice use of those lines. You really cannot leave anything open.
Go, Cat, go!
Another 4 points for Rotterdam on the board. That was another 2-minute jam. Got Flags and Manelli up against Mitchie Impossible. And we have a jammer penalty called on Rotterdam, which means that there's another 2-minute jam and a power jam for Zurich.
Jawohl, Michi, go! Just go, go!
Both jammers now back on track. Some nice offensive actions from the Zurich team right there. But unfortunately, the Rotterdam blockers were too fast in reforming. And Scardinate takes lead as the jammer for Zurich. Jammer for Rotterdam still on their initial pass. Gardner is fighting hard against those Rotterdam blockers. Quite nice to see the Zurich blockers are really forming a nice tripod and staying together very well. And that's 4 points for Zurich. There was a star pass for Rotterdam. We now have a new jammer. And Zurich was able to get some extra points, and that makes it a very, very close game for 24 points for Rotterdam and 23 points for Zurich. So at this point, anything could happen. An official timeout is being signaled from the scoreboard. Is everyone excited? It's going to be a close game, I think. I have to be honest with you, this is my first time announcing. Okay, everyone's ready, and we're going into 5 seconds. We've got Fear Pressure for Rotterdam as a jammer, and we've got Catzilla for Zurich. And Catzilla goes straight through on that outside line. And Fear Pressure gets out of that initial pass as well. And it's been called off to make sure that Rotterdam is not scoring any points. But there are still 2 points for Zurich on the board. And that means so lining up, we have Loos Licht for Rotterdam as a jammer, and we have Mitchie Impossible for Zurich. Mitchie Impossible straight on the outside. As I mentioned before, with these types of jammers, you really don't want to leave any space on the lines. And a nice star pass from Rotterdam. We now see Van Minkelen with the jam cover. And a penalty has been called on the Zurich jammer, which means that there's another 2-minute jam and there's a power jam for Rotterdam. Rotterdam comes in with a nice offensive move, making sure that Van Minkelen can pass right through on the outside. And Van Minkelen gets past on the outside line with some nice toe stop work. And as you can see, the Zurich jammer is back on track and they got past quite easily. And just casually floating past the pack, scoring another 4 points. As a pivot, this is a nightmare that you always have where you get the helmet cover and then the other jammer gets a penalty, so you have to do a 2-minute jam. As already mentioned it before, but a 2-minute jam on this floor, it's really feels like a punishment. And that's the jam. A quite high-scoring jam. Zurich made a nice comeback when they got back out of the box, and that brings our score to 36 points for Rotterdam and 37 for Zurich. And I believe that's a lead change. Very exciting.
Very exciting.
Rotterdam has called a team timeout, so we'll have a 1.5 minutes of a little break. Didn't really mention the bench crew on both sides, but we can see Vex, who is the coach for Rotterdam, having a serious conversation with the Rotterdam people on track. Other than that, we have Tegan Scaria as the jammer coach for Rotterdam and Runtime Terror as a lineup. And for Zurich, we have Desast Alast as a bench coach together with James Trilla, and as the lineup manager, they have Salvatore present.
Come on, Zurich!
Lining up, we have Bremer for Rotterdam, and we have Scardenay as a jammer for Zurich.
Come on! Yes!
Bremer got out with lead. Rotterdam is lead. She's coming back up into the pack. A little car crash over there. And a penalty has been called on the jammer for Zurich, so she will have to sit out for 30 seconds. That means that there's a power jam for Rotterdam. And during a power jam, if you have a power jam against you, you really want to make sure that you kill that penalty time, those 30 seconds, to make sure that the other team can't make use of it too much.
Go pick up! Evo Tiger! Come on! Yes! Yes!
Bremer's gotten out, scoring 4 points. And the jammer of Zurich is back on track. A lot of penalties are being called this jam. 2 blockers for Zurich are in the box right now. Bremer's coming through. But there was some nice one-on-one blocking action from skater 8 from Zurich. And that's another 4 points for Rotterdam, which means that this was a 12-point jam for Rotterdam. Lining up, we have Flies and Manelli for Rotterdam, and we have Catzilla as a jammer for Zurich. Rotterdam takes lead, but Zurich is right behind them, and it seems like they're racing each other. Catzilla's working hard to get in front. And a quick call off. And I believe that's 0 points for both teams. So Zurich was very successful in making sure that Rotterdam didn't score any points. Lining up, we have Mitchie Impossible for Zurich. And we have Carcinova as a jammer for Rotterdam. Woo! That could have been a bad fall, but it was some nice action to get back up by Carcinova. And Zurich gets a lead and gets out of the initial pass first. Nova also made it out and is now chasing it back with a quick call off from Zurich. Make sure to put 4 points on the board for Zurich and keeping Rotterdam at 0 points for this jam. Bringing the score much closer together again. 48 points for Rotterdam and 41 points for Zurich. We have Vier Prosper as a jammer for Rotterdam. And we have Scardinay as a jammer for Zurich. Peer pressure slams right through that wall and comes out as lead jammer. But with the star pass, Zurich is not far behind. It was a very nice star pass. With a perfect timing for the call off from Rotterdam. Lining up, we have Kat Silla as the jammer for Zurich and Looslicht for Rotterdam in green. Seems like there's a lot of lining up at the very jammer line, making sure that those jammers aren't getting a lot of space. As I'm saying that, the Zurich jammer got out on their initial pass, getting lead, but Looslicht is now getting out as well. And right on the line, an easy 4 points for Zurich. If Bremer facing off against Mitchie Impossible, both of the pivots are in the penalty box, so a star pass will not be an option in the first 30 seconds. And Mitchie Impossible breaks right through those arms of the Rotterdam blockers, gaining lead. Bremer is now also out on the initial pass, and it's being called off after scoring 4 points for Zurich. A little bit of a collision here in the official lane. Everything seems to be all right. So lining up, we have Flash Zambanelli for Rotterdam, and we have Scardinay for Zurich. Scardinay takes lead, and Flash Zambanelli is right behind. It's a lot of signaling from the coaches on both sides. And it's being called off right before Flash Manelli joins back into the pack. 4 points for Zurich and 0 for Rotterdam. This is something I noticed during the last game, but it's quite nice. The coaches for Zurich are set up on both sides of track to make sure that the skaters can hear them from all around. That's such a good idea. And Zurich takes lead. Rotterdam Jammer is still trying to fight through that strong wall from Zurich. And that's 4 points for Zurich. Carsanova out on their initial pass. A nice call off right before Casanova turns around the corner from Zurich.
Sieht schon besser aus. Nein, nein. Das kannst du nicht verstehen. Ja, die zweite Halbzeit jetzt.
A team timeout has been called for Zurich. So we'll have another 1.5 minutes. Both teams will be having a bit of a conversation probably about how it's going, getting a bit of a pep talk from their coaches. But it's also some breathing room for the officials. You could imagine that the officials are also skating hard around track and inside track. So sometimes a team timeout is also just a nice timeout for the officials. By the way, today we have a nice new thing. We have a garage sale. As probably everyone else also has, we have a lot of clothes that we don't really use. So we decided that we would donate them to a good cause, namely Rotterdam Roller Derby. And if you are in the market for some new clothes, please visit the garage sale on the other side of the hall. We're back in lineup time. We have Fear Pressure as a jammer for Rotterdam. And we've got Mission Impossible for Peer Pressure from Rotterdam takes lead. But the jammer from Zurich is not far behind. Peer Pressure using a lot of good explosive movement to get through and calling it off before the Zurich jammer reaches the back. An official review is being called by Zurich, so all the captains and alternates are being called to the inside of the track to discuss. So you might occasionally see some people run around with tape and then going to the track to put some tape on it, wondering what's going on. So because this track, there's a rope beneath it and it's taped down, but sometimes when people skate into it or across it, it rips or it breaks or it tears, and that needs to be repaired to make sure that the rope doesn't become dangerous, because that's something that you could trip over very easily if there's no tape over it. And that's why we have some track repair ninjas. And they just have to run around and make sure that the track is safe for everyone. Yes, we received a question about the official review. I hope that we will be told what the official review is about in a moment. But currently, the officials are busy discussing. But once I know more about it, I will also tell you more about it. All right, so Caps Lock, one of the officials, has told me that the official review was called by Zurich to call a cut on the jammer of Rotterdam on the initial pass. Unfortunately, the no call for that penalty will stand. So that means that Zurich lost their official review for this half. And for anyone who needs to brush up on the rules, if you call an official review and you win the official review, you can keep that official review for the same half. However, if you lose the official review, you don't get a do-over. And in the meantime, a lot of interesting stuff happened. A penalty was called on the Zurich jammer, which means that there's a power jam for Rotterdam. And that's 4 points for Rotterdam. Penalties are being called on blockers. One blocker from Zurich and one blocker from Rotterdam. The Rotterdam skaters are getting ready for the jam to be released from the penalty box and are in a nice wall formation. And now there is a power jam for Zurich because the Rotterdam jammer got a high block penalty. There was a lot of tumbling, and in those cases it can sometimes be the case that you get penalties that you don't see very often. There's a lot of fighting between the jammer and Van Winkelen at the front of the pack there. And the jammer from Rotterdam is back on track, Loos Licht. It's another 2-minute jam. We've seen a lot of those in this game. That's not very common. So another 4 points for Rotterdam. And an official timeout is being called. It's not just the teams that can call timeouts, the officials can do so as well for many reasons. Sometimes they need to discuss some things and put their ducks in a row. Sometimes not everyone is ready yet. It seems like there might have been a fall on the head, so the officials are implementing the concussion guidelines. I'm getting a nod from the officials. So the skater is being escorted to the medics. Skater 8-4 from Zurich, Evie Night Fury. And yeah, concussions are no joke, folks. I personally had two. It's not fun. Recovering is terrible. But ultimately, that's why we need to be careful with our little heads. We're going into the next jam with Catzilla for Zurich and Bremer for Rotterdam. And lead has been called for Rotterdam. And that's 4 points for Rotterdam on the board. As you can see, the jammer from Zurich, they took their cover off, sometimes to confuse a little bit, being recycled to the back of the pack. And another 4 points for Bremer. The jammer got out. And now the Zurich jammer is chasing after them. But Bremer is of course calling it before they can start scoring points. So that was a 12-point jam for Bremer. Pretty high scoring, considering how close this game is. And that makes it that there's a 10-point differential between teams, with Rotterdam in the lead. Two blockers from Rotterdam in the box, which means that Zurich has a back advantage. And they made use of it, making sure that their jammer got out first. But Fleiser Manelli from Rotterdam is not far behind. And it's loudly being yelled that Zurich jammer should call. But the Zurich jammer has received a penalty. And the green jammer has a penalty, so that means that we will see a little switch off in the penalty box. There cannot be no jammer on track, so Zurich jammer is back. And the Rotterdam jammer is back as well in green. But unfortunately, a back block has been called on the green jammer. So we are back in a power jam situation for Zurich this time. Rotterdam is stretching the pack out, trying to keep them, but the Zurich jammer has escaped. Zurich jammer is stuck against that very strong Rotterdam wall. And Fleiser Manelli steps right through on the inside line. Another jammer penalty has been called, this time on the Zurich jammer. And that makes it that there will be a power jam start for Rotterdam. It kind of felt like the jammers were switching off being in the penalty box. We have Looslicht lining up as the jammer for Rotterdam, trying to make use of this power jam start. And they got through with some very nice offense from the Rotterdam team. Looslicht pushing that last blocker at the end of the pack and twirling right around them, scoring 4 points for Rotterdam. The jammer from Zurich is back on track, trying to make their initial pass. And the jam gets called off by the Rotterdam jammer. As you can see, there's some Looslicht really tried to push their hips in front of those blockers because that's how you score the points. And by doing that, she did end up putting 3 extra points on the scoreboard. And that takes us into halftime. We have a 15-minute intermission. That's 1-5, not 5-0, 1-5 minutes. And I hope I'll see you back. Oh, it's not halftime yet. Sorry. Scoreboard. We are not going into halftime. It is now halftime. It is now halftime. Great. There's a short break. Please visit our merch stands over there. Zurich also brought some really nice merch. Please check it out. They have a quite nice shirt that looked quite nice. Of course, buy some stuff from Rotterdam. You're in the city. You gotta be supportive. And like I mentioned before, there is a garage sale. If you are in the market for some new clothes, some secondhand clothes, actually, please have a look and buy something to support the league. We also still have some raffle things available, I think. So if you want to try your luck, check that out too. And we'll see you in. You had a nice halftime and yet you've had some time to buy some merch or win something at the raffles. We're going into the second half of the second game of Zurich against Rotterdam. And we're starting out with 1 blocker of Rotterdam in the box and 1 blocker of Zurich in the box. And Rotterdam, Looslicht takes lead, getting out of that initial pass first. But Scardinay has now also gotten out of the back. And the jam gets called off by Looslicht right before that jammer from Zurich would get into the back. However, there are still 2 blockers in the box. The pivot from Rotterdam, number 37 from Zurich. We see both teams lining up at the front.
Come on, Zurich, back, come. No pressure.
Moving back nicely right before the whistle goes.
Push the child, man. Come on.
Now only 2 blockers left for Rotterdam on track. And that is helpful for Zurich because the jammer got out first, taking lead for Zurich. Bremer still on the initial pass. It's taken the cover off. And it seems like there was a star pass for Rotterdam. Rotterdam out of their initial pass. We now have Pocket Bomb as a jammer for Rotterdam. With a nice caller from Zurich. Lining up, we have Mitchie Impossible for Zurich. And we have Flies Manelli for Rotterdam.
Come on, Michi. Come, Sean, push. Yes.
And Flies Manelli takes lead for Rotterdam. But the Zurich jammer is right behind her. Some chasing action. and scoring 1 point and then calling it off. But it seems like it wasn't successful. 0 points on the board for both teams. Oh, a correction has been made. 1 point for Rotterdam. After all, it seems like Vlasimanelli was just in time pushing those hips in front of the hips of the blocker from Zurich. Lining up, we have Carcinova for Rotterdam and we have Scardene for Zurich. And we've got a penalty called on the jammer for Zurich, which means that there's a power jam for Rotterdam. Some nice offense from Minkle to help Carcinova through. And now lead for Rotterdam. But Zurich has been quite successful in killing some penalty time during that power jam. So Rotterdam was only able to make their initial pass. Another penalty being called on the jammer for Zurich. So the power jam continues. A penalty is being called on the Rotterdam jammer, so there's another switch off in the penalty box. The jammer for Zurich is back on track. Carcinova is standing as well, getting ready to be released from the penalty box. Nice offense from blocker number 5 from Zurich, but it wasn't enough for the jammer to get through. And that was another jam done. It seems like we are seeing a lot of jammer penalties all in the same jam this game. We don't see a lot of isolated jammer penalties, which is quite interesting. An official timeout is being called. Seems like we're checking something with the scores, but everything is in order, so we can get back to line. Lining up, we have Catzilla in blue for Zurich, and we have Veer Pressure in green for Rotterdam. And we have a power jam for Rotterdam. A penalty has been called for the jammer of Zurich. And Veer Pressure takes the lead for Rotterdam. Veer Pressure is up against a very, very strong wall. But the jammer from Zurich is back on track. And a star pass for Zurich, getting them out of that back. With 4 points for Rotterdam and 0 points for Zurich on the board. Or bringing the score to 103 points for Rotterdam and 80 points for Zurich. And even though that's a 23-point differential, honestly, you could score 23 points in one jam, so nothing can be said about the outcome of this game. We've got Mitchie Impossible as a jammer for Zurich and Looslicht for Rotterdam. Looslicht getting out of that initial pass with a nice iconic twirl that we love to see. Mitchie Impossible is right behind though. Seems like Looslicht was trying to score some extra points, but called it off right in time, making sure to get 3 points for Rotterdam on track. Then lining up, we have Bremer for Rotterdam, and we have Skartne for Zurich in blue. We have 2 blockers from Rotterdam in the box and 1 pivot from Zurich in the box, giving a pack advantage to Zurich on this jam start. Skartne getting out of that initial pass. Making sure that Rotterdam is forced to do a star pass. And we now see Cherry Bomb as the jammer for Rotterdam. A nice call off right before Cherry Bomb is able to get back. Making sure to keep the scoring low. Rotterdam 0 points for this jam and 4 points for Zurich. Lining up at the front. A lot of space. Rolling back right before that whistle goes. Taking space from Fleiser Manelli for Rotterdam. But the jammer for Zurich was able to get through, making use of that chaos at the front of the pack. Fleiser Manelli is not far behind. And you saw the Zurich jammer take a look at the bench, seeing if she should call it off. And she got the approval to call it off right in time. So that's something that's actually quite important in a derby. Good communication, not just with what's happening on track, but also with your bench. And especially as a jammer, it's important to keep an eye on your bench coaches, seeing if they want you to call it off, seeing if they want you to keep running it. And we have lead for Rotterdam. And a star pass for Zurich, with the pivot has now become the jammer. But before they are able to reach the pack, it's being called off by Rotterdam. 1 point for Rotterdam, 0 point for Zurich. So Zurich was quite successful in making sure that Rotterdam wasn't able to score a lot of points in that jam. We have Skartne in blue for Zurich, and we have Fear Pressure in green for Rotterdam. A cut has been called on the Rotterdam jammer and Fear Pressure, which means that there's a power jam for Zurich. But a penalty is also being called on the blue jammer, which means that the green jammer is released from the box, and we see another switch off. It keeps happening, folks. The blue jammer is back on track. And Fear Pressure got out at the front after some nice one-on-one blocking action from Zurich. A little tumble. A nice hit of Van Winkelen, but that was a very good recovery by the jammer from Zurich. Fear Pressure sliding in on that outside, getting through the pack without making a lot of contact. And yes, for the people who've been watching for a while, this is another 2-minute jam. It's one of many in this game. You don't see them often in Derby these days, so it's quite interesting to see what will happen. The interesting thing though is that the 2-minute jams don't tend to be very high scoring jams, so we'll have to keep an eye out. You can really see those jammers working so hard. Both teams have incredible walls. Those blockers are doing a really good job. They're not just strong, they're also fast in reforming and getting back once you break through. So as a jammer, you need to be faster and more strategic. And in that jam, we had 12 points for Rotterdam and 9 points for Zurich. Very close in scores. And lining up, we have Katzilla for Zurich and we have Looslicht for Rotterdam. Looslicht getting through on that outside, just stepping on a line, making use of some distraction created by that tight back situation at the jam start. But the jammer for Zurich is now also out after stretching that pack tin at the end. And it's been called off by Rotterdam. What's quite interesting actually is that it's pretty even which team gets lead in this game. Both jammers have been quite successful in getting out first. However, looking at the point differential, you can almost kind of tell that Rotterdam is able to score more points once they get lead, which usually means that the Zurich jammers get stuck behind the blockers for a little bit longer, giving enough time for the jammer of Rotterdam to score a little bit more points. And it of course also has to do with penalties being called. Manelli for Rotterdam gets out of the pack and taking lead. The Zurich jammers not far behind, doing a nice rolling action around those Rotterdam blockers. There's 3 Rotterdam blockers going to the penalty box. But the penalty box is full. There can only be 2 blocks from the same team. So Cherry Bomb was sent back on track to be in the queue. S is now standing, so Cherry Bomb can report to the box and sit down. But that does mean that Chloe is the only block from Rotterdam, which means that there's a clear pack advantage for Zurich. And if you're the only blocker from the team on track, you are responsible for keeping back, and you could get a pack destruction penalty quite easily. As Terminate, back on track as a blocker, being able to support May. And a nice apex jump from that Zurich jammer, landing on one knee, but it was enough. Carcinova now out on the initial pass, stumbling around a little bit. But of course, a call off from Zurich before she could reach the back. And that does mean that Zurich also crossed that 100-point barrier, 3 digits on the board for both teams. Very exciting. And they were able to get that score difference up a little bit, or actually down a little bit. A team timeout has been called for Rotterdam. So we have 1.5 minutes where we can chill out a little bit. And the teams will probably have a little conversation on the bench.
Keine Musik, nichts. Ich würde Brief. Na doch nicht. Nein, das macht nicht. Das geht um Ja, ich habe letztlich auch meine Berufung.
Back into lineup time. We have Mission Impossible for Zurich in blue and Fear Pressure in green for Rotterdam. Lining up as jammers. The jams start from the blockers, starting all the way at the pivot line. They're all moving back for that whistle. A nice hip check from Whipping Red Siren on the jammer. And a nice offensive move from number 3-7, blocker 3-7 from Zurich to help their jammer out, getting past those Rotterdam blockers and gaining them lead. Fear Pressure now also out of their initial pass. Zurich jammer going up against Iron Mist, but calling it off right before Fear Pressure hits the back. And yeah, from experience I can tell you it's not fun to go up against Iron Mist as a jammer. She's a very, very good blocker, stable, and hits hard. So I feel that pain. We have Skartney as the jammer for Zurich and Looslicht for Rotterdam. Looslicht taking a quick lead. Zurich blockers doing quick offense on the blockers from Rotterdam before they reform to make sure they are ready for when Looslicht comes back into that back as a jammer. And 4 points scored for Rotterdam, but Skartney is out on her initial pass. And they get around the Rotterdam blockers quite easily, scoring 4 points for Zurich. With some nice side serving action on the lines here. Looslicht also passes the blockers from Zurich. And Mary and Van Winkle get locked in by the blockers from Zurich, causing the Zurich jammer to get past them quite easily as well, scoring 4 points. And it's called by Looslicht. With 11 points for Rotterdam Roller Derby in this jam and 8 points for Zurich. Now we have Bremer for Rotterdam lining up and Katzilla as a jammer for Zurich.
Come on! Hit! Come on!
A nice hit from Whipward Signer again at the line, knocking that jammer from Zurich out on the inside and recycling them all the way to the back. Another nice hit from Pocket Bomb, but it gets them a penalty, unfortunately, and the jam is called off by Zurich. We're starting off with 2 blockers in the box for Zurich and 1 blocker in the box for Rotterdam. There seems to be some confusion about the penalties in the penalty box. And that's exactly why an official timeout is being called right now, to clear some stuff up. Yes. Okay, let's have a quick look at the penalties. For anyone who has watched the first game, there are less penalties in this game than the last one, but it's still not a very good sight. It seems that everyone in Rotterdam team has had at least 1 penalty, and Monster Mary is close to fouling out. For Zurich, what you see is that Massive Tiger Moves, Cardinal and Flegel are also close to filing out, but there are still some players who have gotten no penalties at all. So it seems like there's just some players who are a little bit heavier on receiving penalties. And I do have to say, playing in Rotterdam, we do have very strict officials, and that's good because it makes you a better player and it makes the game safer. But if you're not used to that, sometimes you get penalties called that you never had before. And a penalty has been called on the jammer from Zurich, which means it's a power jam for Rotterdam. Mitchie Impossible heading to that penalty box. Flies and Manelli as the jammer for Rotterdam. Pocket Bomb back on track. Make sure that there's a full back. Rotterdam setting up some nice offense, and it is up to Flash Manelli to make use of that, and she did, scoring another 4 points for Rotterdam. Now the Rotterdam blockers are getting ready for the entrance of the jammer from Zurich. Make sure that they are ready to catch them and that they don't get through easily, and they did that successfully as well, holding the jammer tightly behind that back. But the jammer breaks through on the inside line, giving jammers a little space on that inside line. Make sure that you lose them, so it's always important to cover the lines. So in this jam we had a power jam against Rotterdam, and you can see against Zurich, and you can tell that they made great use of that, with 12 points for Rotterdam during this jam and 0 for Zurich. So the point differential has gone up again in the advantage of Rotterdam. Lead for Rotterdam, Veer Pressure getting out first. But Scardenay from Zurich is not far behind. Veer Pressure calling it off with those hips right in front of that blocker. 4 points for Rotterdam and 0 points for Zurich. That was a quick jam. Moving on with Looslicht lining up as a jammer for Rotterdam. And we have Catzilla for Zurich. Both jammers up against very tight walls and strong walls. Can really see them work for it, trying to push through, trying to get them to commit and moving to the side. Looslicht has received lead for Rotterdam. Unfortunately, right after they received that lead, they were recycled all the way back to the pack. So they are still not scoring points. They have to get out first and then go around to score points. And in the meantime, the jammer for Zurich has gotten out. So of course, Looslicht is calling it.
Ja, Zurich! Zurich!
Bremer lining up for Rotterdam and Mission Impossible for Zurich. As soon as 5 seconds is called, those jammers get ready for action.
Come on! Kom, Johnny,
Mission Impossible is very, very good at breaking up that tight wall from Rotterdam, creating a little bit of chaos to get those gaps to get through, and she does so successfully again. Getting lead for Zurich in this jam. Rotterdam jammer have taken their cover off, now out of the back at the front. Cherry Bomb do some one-on-one blocking, but and reaching the end of the engagement zone, so letting go, make sure that the Zurich jammer has gotten 4 points, but Bremer wasn't far behind and has also received 4 points. It was loudly being called to call the game, but it was a little bit too late. 4 points for Rotterdam. And 2 points for Zurich in that last pass. Once again, we have Chardonnay. Oh, official timeout. Very short official timeout. We're back. Got Plaza Manelli for Rotterdam, and we've got Chardonnay for Zurich. Plaza Manella breaking through that wall, but receiving a forearm. So that's a jammer penalty, meaning that there's a power jam for Zurich. Will they be able to capitalize on this power jam? She's pushing around and twirling around those Rotterdam blockers, doing so successfully, getting out and receiving 4 points. Zurich setting up some offense, but they also realize that they need to get ready for Flazamanelli to get out of that penalty box, and they were ready to catch Flazamanelli. But it's a very strong jammer. She's able to push right through. And the jam's being called off by the Zurich jammers. Right in time as well, because that's 0 points for Rotterdam. Official review is being called by Rotterdam. Let's wait and see what it's all about. They're waiting for the captains and the alternates from Zurich to start the official review. So while we wait, maybe we can take another look at the penalties. Alright, so for here we're seeing much of the same. The skaters who were close to a foul out seem to be playing it a little bit safer. And Rotterdam is getting a little bit more penalties than they did in the first half, I believe, with 2 skaters close to foul out. But Pocket Bomb on 5 and Monster Mary on 6 penalties. What's interesting to see is that there's quite an interesting mix of different types of penalties being called, but there don't seem to be a lot of pack destruction penalties, so that's good. In terms of scoring,
In terms of scoring,
the teams who are getting lead
the
is
teams
still
who are
pretty
getting
evenly
lead is
distributed.
still pretty evenly distributed.
Um, and I think we are seeing some of the
And I
same
think we
stuff
are
that we saw in the
seeing
first
some
half
of
as
the same
well,
stuff that we saw in the
where
first half as well,
when
where
Rotterdam gets lead, they are
when
able to
Rotterdam
score a
gets
little bit
lead,
more points than
they are able to
Zurich.
score a little
When
bit
Zurich
more
gets
points than
lead,
Zurich.
they
When
are
Zurich gets
often
lead,
forced to call it off a
they
little
are
bit early
often forced to
because
call it off a
the
little bit
Rotterdam
early
Jammer is
because the
very
Rotterdam
close
Jammer is
behind, and that is
very close
or could
behind,
be
and that
an
is
explanation
or could
for
be
the difference
an
in
explanation
points.
for the
But
difference
it's
in
because it's
points.
definitely not
Because it's
because
definitely not
Zurich isn't getting lead
because
that often.
Zurich isn't getting lead that often.
I feel like I should have prepared some talking
I feel
points
like
before
I
I
should
came
have
here.
prepared some talking points before I
This is a
came
lesson
here.
for next time.
This is a lesson for next time.
Is
Is
as a player, waiting for an official
as a
review to end
player
can
waiting
sometimes
for
be
an official
quite
review to end can sometimes
taxing
be
because
quite
it can take quite long.
taxing because it can take quite long.
All right, so Rotterdam called an official review for forearm on Zurich because they feel like the forearm helped the jammer get out. However, they lost their official review because the officials did not feel like it gave advantage to their team. So with that, Amsterdam or Rotterdam has lost their official review for this half, and we're back in the game. And we have Fear Pressure for Rotterdam, and we have Catzilla jamming for Zurich. And Catzilla gets through on that inside line, skating right past those Rotterdam blockers. Meanwhile, Fear Pressure is making use of their own blockers and getting through as well. But of course, Catzilla is calling it. And now we'll have to wait and see if we'll have one more jam or not. So just to be sure, Rotterdam is fielding some extra skaters. And the rolling whistle means that it's the end of the game, and it's a win for Rotterdam Roller Derby with 161 points against 132 points for Zurich. A big applause for both teams. It was a very close game all the way to the end. And while we have some team hugging going on, you can all line up around the track and get some high fives. The official end. If you want, you can stand around track for a high five, and the skaters will come around at some point. And thank you very much. I will be playing the next game, so hopefully you'll stick around. And then we will have Sparkles here to take over from me with the announcing.